to women who have had botched cosmetic surgery / dentistry. How has your experience been? How long did it take you to find your peace again? Had 2 teeth pulled because my mouth was crowded and my wisdom teeth would come in and push everything over and cause problems otherwise. X-rays have since confirmed I'm one of those few people who do not have wisdom teeth. Still mad 20 odd years later. I still haven't found peace lol. I had 2 of my permanent teeth pulled out as a child, so even with braces there's a clear lack of balance and my bottom canines are super noticeable. Also I had gotten nose fillers 2 years ago, and although the procedure itself was done W/nurse with years of experience and a cannula, the filler itself got into one of my tiny veins. That led to my eye. Now I have a nasty blind spot on my right eye that flashes like every hour and a scar on my nose. One day I'll find peace I guess, but it's just not now. Edit. Wow, I appreciate all the concern and care. Honestly, I was a stupid 19-year-old with a massive insecurity, so even though the nurse and I went over potential harm, it went in one ear and out the other. If you or someone you know are thinking about a non-surgical nose job, I advise you to please sit on and think about the possible complications. I live in fear that I'll eventually lose my sight from my right eye because of it. It's way better to save the money and get an actual surgical nose job by a licensed and practicing plastic surgeon who you trust. If anything, it's at least safer than filler. Thanks again everyone. It's not that dramatic, but I had 4 teeth pulled as a kid to make space, and at least 2 of them probably didn't need to be pulled. TBH, I'm still not totally happy with my teeth, especially since I had so much orthodontia besides that, and I feel like they should be perfect, but I'm working towards accepting them more. Half of one of my bottom left molars got knocked out of my mouth at a playground when I was around 6 years old. This left half of the gum beneath the tooth exposed, as well as the remaining part of the tooth and the roots. When I informed my dentist, he didn't do anything about it besides taking a note. For the next 2 years, at every single checkup he would exclaim, "Oh, you're missing almost an entire molar," and he'd explain the whole story again. Moved to a different country. Went to a dentist recommended to my family by a friend. The dentist proceeds to put a filling on the molar, like literally just on top of it. Despite there not being a cavity, the empty space where the rest of the tooth should have been was ignored again. The filling ended up coming loose a month or 2 later while I brushed my teeth. Another 3 years later, I'm back to my old dentist. Only 5 years after that, and repeating the story every checkup, he decides to reconstruct the tooth. It feels odd, uneven, but it works, so I think nothing of it. 2 or 3 years after that, one of the assistants is doing my checkup. The look on his face after seeing my reconstructed tooth scared the shit out of me. He asked me how long ago the molar got knocked out of my mouth, how long ago it got reconstructed, if I remember what material the dentist used, etc. He told me that the material used was wrong, and that no one should ever walk around with an exposed root and broken tooth for 10 years. Whoops. Close bracket. The root had died, and the material used for reconstruction had started seeping into the root and surrounding roots. I have about 4 centimeters of dead root and tissue on the left side of my lower jaw. He reconstructed the tooth properly, and it should not give me any issues in the future. But I rarely eat sweet foods anymore, and when I do, and accidentally chew on the left side of my mouth, I deeply regret it. Besides that, it left me horribly distrustful of dentists and orthodontists. I desperately need to go for a checkup and to get the glue for my lingual braces reapplied. The pandemic means I can't go anytime soon, but I'm absolutely dreading it. My mother had liposuction done on her legs in the early 2000s. The doctor was allegedly drunk and left her thighs botched and burned. She won some money in court, but to this day has never worn a bathing suit or will let anyone see her legs. I went to a dentist on my own when I was about 13 years old because my parents were neglectful. I don't remember what procedure it was exactly, but I think he put that clamp that holds your teeth or something on wrong, and it dug into my lip very deep. It was very painful, and I walked back home with blood dripping down my chin. People were staring at me. I'm 25 now and still have a very visible scar. About 7 years ago, I had a severe case of temporomandibular joint dysfunction and my jaw completely locked shut for 6 months. I mean, completely locked shut. I had less than 8mm of open space from top teeth to bottom teeth. Just enough to get a straw through, so I could actually get nourishment and not die of starvation. Anyway, I was receiving as many steroid shots as humanly possible to try and ease the joint back into place. It wasn't working, so my doctor tried injecting anesthesia into a new part of my face. She got a bit too close to the nerve, and instantly, half the muscles on one side of my face dropped. Bell's palsy. I was 16 years old. Thankfully, the major effects were only temporary, about 24 hours, and I was able to actually move the muscles again. Unfortunately, it did have a permanent effect, and now my smile is lopsided. Whenever I smile now, one side of my face goes up higher than the other, making my mouth look uneven. I've made my peace with it, because my jaw eventually did get fixed after some experimental procedures, and I have a really nice smile after spending tens of thousands of dollars on jaw surgeries and braces. Most people don't even notice it now. I had a rhinoplasty done 4 years ago, and although the physical appearance is much better, my nose on the inside is extremely sensitive and gets blocked very quickly, making it hard for me to breathe. I have to manually unblock my nose at least 1 to 2 times a day, and this often leads to it bleeding a little bit, even if I'm super gentle. I had it done in another country, so I never got to contact my surgeon properly about it, as the only thing he recommended at first was a nasal spray, which didn't do anything. Although I'm not fully at peace with it, I don't regret the surgery, as I think I would have been far more depressed with my old nose. It was one of my biggest insecurities. As annoying and often inconvenient as it is, unblocking my nose I can deal with for now, and having a humidifier helps a bit. But ultimately I'm saving up to get a revision surgery, or at least to be able to see a good surgeon in my own country to see what they can do. No idea when that will be though, since it's at least 7k I think. I had breast reduction surgery about 4 to 5 years ago. I look great with my shirt on, but with my shirt off, I have very thick keloid scars. My skin just did not heal as cleanly as it could have, despite following all the instructions to minimize scarring. I know scarring after an invasive surgery like this is common. I won't consider this a botch, just accepting a new norm. The only people who know about this are my doctors and my boyfriend, who sometimes calls me Frankentitters. It's all good lol. I would get this surgery again. Same results. In a heartbeat. I knew a woman with new breast implants, and one had gotten infected and had to be removed. She had to wait 6 months for it to heal before she could try again. She was a stripper and was dancing during the interim when we talked. She didn't seem upset to talk about it at all and said she still made money. My mom started experiencing age discrimination at work. Despite being incredibly smart and a top producer, she decided to get a neck lift and an eye tuck. Okay fine. Except she told no one. So none of her family knew where she was. The nurse at the place she went said she had also done it, and it hurt. So take some painkillers beforehand. My mom took NSAIDs and bleed out on the table. They had no contact info, and she was at the hospital getting a blood transfusion. And we didn't find out until she woke up. But hey, they ended up finishing, and she looks good. So, not 3 months later my mom got permanent eye macube, and the woman slipped when her phone rang, tattooed her eyeball, and then freaked out, dropped her off at the ear and left. My mom lost 10% of her vision in that eye, and still went back to that woman to finish. What? I made sure her phone was off. Yes, my mom is very vain as well. She is beautiful though. I'm not into cosmetic procedures like her, and she doesn't understand why. And if I was, I sure as hell would not be taking a recommendation from her. I had 2 surgeries to correct my jaw. First correction. Second removal of the metal parts, last year. It was horrible. I would never do this again, or recommend it, and I haven't found peace yet because my lower lip still slash again after the second surgery feels odd. It also looks asymmetrical, but I could accept that if only the feeling was normal again. I had a scar revision surgery and it made the scars look worse. It sucks. I don't have peace considering I cover them up all the time. I'm not sure if I would call mine a botched surgery. I don't necessarily think it was any fault of the surgeon, but merely a potential complication that he thoroughly discussed with me prior. I had breast augmentation about 7 years ago after I was done breastfeeding my kids. Y'all heard the old tune. They were deflated hanging little boobas and I wanted a full bust. I've always been very stick figure-ish, but have always admired a curvaceous body. My surgeon was conservative and talked me down in size. Thank goodness. Long story short, I experienced 2 rather significant complications. One is nerve damage. The bottoms of my breast are almost entirely numb. But like that numbness, where sometimes you have an itch, but can't scratch it, it can be maddening. They kept saying at the beginning that the nerves should heal and it'd be fine, but they never did. There's also something with my nipples. Hard to explain. They aren't numb, but I have a completely different sensation when they are stimulated now, and not necessarily in a positive way. I used to go gaga for nipple stimulation and now it's just meh. I also have what's called bottoming out on one side. It's not too severe, but my implant kind of fell out of the pocket and my breast tissue now sits above it in certain positions. Sometimes it's obvious, especially in certain sex positions, and it makes me self-conscious. Surgery to fix it is super expensive and no guarantee, so I haven't wanted to do that yet, but I'm hoping to someday. I couldn't tell you whether I regret the surgery or not. I actually really love my breasts and how they look in clothes and they're a good size, but not obviously fake. But these issues have taken their toll. It wasn't botched surgery as much as a piercing that went wrong. I have notoriously sensitive skin. In the late 90s I got a belly button piercing that my body rejected. It created a huge scar that looks to me like I have 2 belly buttons sitting on top of each other. I've considered having surgery to remove the scar tissue. However, no one has ever pointed it out or questioned it. I realize it's only me that perceives it as a flaw. At this stage of life I've learned to live with it. Have not found peace, and will try to fix my teeth until we still work from home, so that no one can see me if they duck it up again lol. It's just so unfair when I see people with perfect teeth, and see that mine was like that before too, and it just got ducked up. I'm so insecure. I don't smile at all so. I had reconstructive breast surgery when I was 13. I developed pretty young and had C-cups at the time. Well, cup I guess. Only my right breast grew. There wasn't really any way to hide it, and changing in locker room was becoming normal. I was an anxious insecure wreck almost every moment I was in public. The stuffing never looked right. It never moved right when I ran or jumped. I just hated myself. My mom and grandma found a plastic surgeon who would do an implant on someone so young. To this day I don't know if it was legal, and he completely botched it. I guess he felt like my nipples should match too, because when I got to take the wrappings off for the first time, I had a giant scar around my right nipple. The breast that was completely fine and needed nothing done to it, and it's not like he accidentally cut the wrong side, because the scar from the implant is really small and on the underside of my left breast. This is just a monster smack in the middle wall around the nipple. It's hideous. I didn't take my shirt off in front of anyone until I was in my mid-20s. And I still can't wear bikinis or to low-cut shirts because the scar is that big. And while that was the worst of it, that wasn't all. The reason they don't do that surgery on people so young is that they're not done growing. And my right breast was not done. It's now a HH. My left side was increased to a C-cup. So there's some discrepancy. A large noticeable discrepancy. It's too expensive for me to fix. So this is just my life now. I'm a little better. But some days are hard. It's like a part of my womanhood is broken. And that's hard to come to terms with. It's been 17 years since then, by the way. Still have the giant scar. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.